Tony Robbins is perhaps one of the country's best-known motivational speakers and life strategists, and during tough times like these, a little strategy can't hurt, and a little cheering as well. Well, Tony was here earlier this morning talking about using fear to your advantage, and now he's back to answer your email questions. Hey, Tony, thanks for sticking around.
Thank you.
Well, let's get right to it, because we've got Lisa in Virginia, and she's trying to stay positive. She writes, "It's hard enough to keep myself positive in the way the markets are going these days, but it's even harder when my husband is very nervous and is making me more nervous too. How do I deal with the situation when I'm having to keep both of us from worrying too much?"
I'd say the first thing you got to do is educate yourself. And what I mean by that is educate yourself about people who've done well in these tough times. Because it's happened before. I mentioned earlier Sir John Templeton, the greatest investor of all time. He made all of his money when markets were crashing. And so I put him on our site, thepowerofcrisis.com. And you can go watch that. Let your husband watch it. You watch it and educate yourself. Second thing is, I've been coaching for 16 years now, one of the top 10 financial traders of all time. He's an amazing man. He writes me every single day. I coach him once a week or once every 2 weeks. So I called him last night because this is a man who in 1987, when the market crashed, he made $500 million that day when everybody's afraid. So let me tell you what he said. He said two things. In the short term, he predicted what was going to happen today. He said, I think we can have some rallies, but he said, I don't think it's the bottom yet. In fact, I think it could go down another 20 to 30%, could even be 40. Now, a lot of people hear that and freak out.
Yeah, but that's not very uplifting, Tony.
No, but it is. Robert Prechter is a man who's a friend of mine also. He wrote a book in 1978 where he said the biggest bull market's coming when we were at 800. It's gone 14 times that on the Dow. I called him up and he said, look, Tony, think of it this way. Stocks that were $50 are now selling for 10 or even 5. There's a great chance, based on what happened in the 30s, even what happened in the 70s, some of those will sell for $5. They'll go down to 1 or even 25 cents. But here's what happened in the 30s and in the 70s. In a 6-month period, if you were at 25 cents, it's not going to go back to $50, but it might go to 5. That's a 2,000% return that could happen in 6 months. People need to know that if you stay strong and smart, save your money, be intelligent, this could be the greatest opportunity since you've been alive. Not being positive based on real history.
So what you're talking about then is just having kind of grit. And I think that, you know, we forget how much grit we have.
I agree with you.
Especially because we get so comfortable in the life that we think is going to always stay the same.
That's right.
And what we have to remember is we are human beings who have tremendous grit, and in this country we've proven that, and it's tough. Now, it's hard, however, to explain this to your children. We've got a good question here from Hannah. She's from Massachusetts. She writes, my children watch the news every morning. How do I make sure that they know what's going on in this crisis, but don't get them scared about their lives and our family's welfare? This is a big issue.
It's a great question. I think you have to understand what we flood ourselves with, we experience. Right now, if you turn on the television, it's bread lines and people saying sell everything, and they even may be right, but for your children, they need resiliency. They need to know there's a compelling future. And the best way to do that, frankly, is not just to protect them, but to show them examples of people that have been through it all. So Casey, who was on your show today, you know, this young man lost his arm, and he's as happy as he can be, totally excited about his life and trying to help other people. So again, I'm not just plugging it, but I created this community called thepowerofcrisis.com. People go there from all over the world, and they share their stories. They were raped and they transformed. They lost everything financially. And at the end of it, they'll tell you how I'm better today. If I know at the time I didn't want it to happen, but if it hadn't, I wouldn't be who I am today. I'm happier, I'm stronger, I'm richer inside. And I think if kids hear enough examples of like that, it starts to stick. Whatever you feed them, they're going to experience. So you've got to feed in those great examples.
My dad always told me that tough times are going to make you stronger.
That's right.
That's always a thing to say. Okay, Roger from New York, he worries that his own worry has gone beyond his control. He writes, what do I do when I feel the fear paralysis that happens when my mind starts to run wild? It seems like there is a cascade of doom and gloom thoughts, and I can't seem to take any action. I just worry. You know, people who are not used to having that emotion are having it these days.
Well, we've all had it at different times of our lives. We just forget. And I think what he has to do is, what's a time in your life that you had an enormous crisis, but what pulled you through? Again, we have people go through on that site and answer 5 questions. And what it basically does is help you figure out, where was this crisis before? You may have even forgotten about. What pulled you through? What belief? What strategy? What experience? Who helped you? What triggered you? And then what did you do that made that shift? But I would also say, remember one affirmation, if you would, in your mind and your body. Own the fact that money is not your life. This is just money. I mean, when I was told I had a tumor in my brain, later on, years later, when I thought I might lose my wife to cancer, I'm going to tell you something. Money doesn't matter at all. But when we get focused on what matters most, we're there. So I mentioned earlier, getting physical is really important because fear is a physical thing. So if you sit around and think about it, not just exercise, going for an intense run, lifting weights, something that pumps the blood and oxygen through you, because when you do that, your entire psychology changes. You see the world through a different place. So I'd say it's contrast of other people's great stories, Model the best that's in you. When have you been through these things before? You've been resilient if you're honest with yourself, and get totally physical and make that a ritual for you. And then you'll start to look for role models of how to turn things around.
Can I add one?
Yes, please.
Hug people.
Oh, I love that. Well, come here.
Come here. Hug people. And just, and embrace human beings who are all around you, and make sure that you're a good friend so that they can be a good friend to you, and you'll feel better.
I think the most important thing you do is get outside yourself. If you go out and try to help somebody else, we have a basket brigade, and we feed 3 million people a year at Thanksgiving from all over the world. It's because somebody fed my family. When you go out and help somebody else, you realize you have no problems.
You realize how
and
lucky
you feel like
are.
You have something to give. And we all need meaning in our life. We don't want to just get. The life now is about what can you give. That's what'll light you up.
Tony Robbins, I'm feeling lucky because I got a hug from you today.
I'm talking about love and passion. Remember when we talked about this the other day? I said, think about a relationship where you have unbelievable love for this person and you constantly are starving, hungry for each other intimately as well. Make the sound of what that sounds like in your body when you have love and passion. Go nice and loud. Come on. Oh, come on. Has it been that long? Make the sound of a relationship where there's lots of love but not enough passion. Make that sound. See, when you talk about a relationship with love but not enough passion, it doesn't seem like that big a deal. But sound is a great way to calibrate what's really happening in your nervous system. What I found in my life for years, I had a relationship with someone who was a great lady, and we had tons of love, but very little passion, and I wanted more passion. But I didn't understand what the triggers were. I didn't understand the differences in values and rules. I didn't know how to shift anything. Nobody teach you this. And so I'd be in this experience where it's like, wow, I remember being on stage vividly in a room that would have been my ultimate years before. It was at the Continental Center in New York City. There were 13,000 people in the room, 12,000 something hundred, almost 13,000 people. And I was doing my gig. And we were rocking. Like what we're doing here with 5,000, imagine 13,000. And we were going full tilt with a level of intensity. It was unbelievable. And people were out of their mind. And during one of the stretch breaks, one of my partners came up and told me my company had gone public that morning. And that's the morning where my stock alone was worth $400 million. So he goes, Tony, you just made $400 million this morning while you're doing what you love. I was like, shit, good morning. It was a great morning. But you know what was interesting? It was really great. It was like, wow, that's wonderful. And then what I really want to do is get right back into what I loved. It it was a cool thing, but it didn't change my life. But the biggest thing is, the end of that night, I'm connecting people, high-fiving, signing, hugging people, and it's just a beautiful day. And I get home, and I'd made $400 million. I've been with almost 13,000 people. I'd done what I loved. I was on fire and alive. And I went home, and I was miserable. Because when I went home, the person I was with wanted me to be something different than what I was. Kind of like, that's why I understood Sarah May. Sarah May was trying to be something she thinks people want or people are expecting from her, but it's not her. So the person I was in a relationship with, when she met me, he's like, God, he's unbelievable. He's this powerful force of nature. He can shake a building with people and move people. And then it was like, why are you so fucking loud? I was like, loud? This is me. Right? And so what I learned to do was be something different that I really wasn't. And so when you're being something you're not, you're miserable. Who knows what I'm talking about here? Say I. And I'm such a lover. I love people. I never want somebody to not be happy. So I would always sacrifice everything, try to make somebody happy, but by not being who I was. There was nothing wrong with her. I was just miserable because I didn't understand the game. When I finally figured this process out, and by the way, guess how I did it? I interviewed people. I had a couple guy was 92, woman's 89, came to my Date with Destiny seminar, and these two were physically all over each other all the time. I mean, so much so it was like, get a room. I mean, this is hard to watch, right? And everybody in the whole seminar noticed it, so I finally brought them on stage and interviewed them. Shit, they're young punks in their 60s. So I bring this 92-year-old man, this 89-year-old woman up, and I said, I got to interview you guys. So I'm interviewing them. I said to him, I said, tell me something. I said, you two seem to not just love each other, you love each other. And they went, oh yeah. I mean, you're rather physical, aren't you? They said, oh yes, we love to be together.
I said, and you guys have intimate relations? Oh, yes, every day. Every day? Sometimes several times a day, the woman says. No exaggeration. And they were so adorable, and they were like all of each other, hugging each other, grabbing each other, touching each other. And I said to him, I said, okay, there are a lot of people that think when you're together 3, 4, 5, 10 years, there's nothing new. They said, nothing new. They just aren't being flexible enough. They're not trying new things. I said, well, tell me something. What's your belief about, how do you stay intimate? The woman says, well, you can't just talk. You got to touch. And she said, touch lots of things. And she's so adorable. And so I said, so you guys have this passion all the time? Yeah. And I said, what's your belief? And he said, well, we believe that it's never boring because we believe there's nothing ugly between two people who love each other, nothing dirty between two people who love each other. She said, yeah, here's our rule. We try anything once, and if we like it, we do it again. So I spent 5 years interviewing people who've been together 20, 30, 40, 50 years, and they don't just have love, they have passion. They're not hanging out. They love each other, and it changed the game for me. And the biggest change in my life, I would give up everything in my life without no exaggeration, no hyperbole, everything I've ever learned, everything I've ever done for the relationship I have with my sage. She has been the great, I'd die for this woman, no exaggeration, but I couldn't have gotten to that place if I hadn't been through all those other places first. And the gift that I've got in that area is a gift you deserve. And anybody can have it. You could be with somebody together for 10 years and you could reignite it because you just didn't know the triggers. Or some of you may find that you're in a relationship where truthfully you are nothing in common. You're just scared shitless to end it because you're afraid of being alone. But there's a way to do this in a way where things can be elegant, but you can be free and you can bring to your life what you deserve. I tell people one thing. If you're not happy in your intimate relationship, you're not fucking happy. Because I don't give a shit how hard you work. I don't care how much money you make, how many trophies you get. In the end, if you don't have that aliveness and passion, a part of you is dead inside. And it doesn't have to be that way. I got to tell you something. Some of you may have seen some of the films of the people I've turned around who hate each other, want to kill each other, been together forever, have no attraction. And we don't just change them in that moment. We follow up. You see them a year later, 2 years later, 5 years later. They never go back because we rewire it. And Date with Destiny. Oh, I got some people who graduate Date with Destiny. Wow. Some grads of Date with Destiny here. Date with Destiny is that program I described this morning when I was talking about Dickens and I talked about going to Fiji and I had that process of coming up with that process. Well, I turned that into a 5.5-day process that what Date with Destiny does is it basically, we worked our tail off here. You got to use a lot of physical energy to deal with your beliefs. Your values, you'll never get through with physical energy. You have to know, it's almost like a puzzle. You have to know exactly what thing triggers what feeling, triggers what emotion. And until you know that, you're at the effect of everything in your life. What Date with Destiny does is it helps you get a plan for your life. Not a plan like scribbling it out, I have to live a certain way, but you begin to see how to take the different parts of you that have inner conflicts and align those parts so you're pulled exactly where you want to go. It is by far the most powerful thing I do, bar none. And the experience in those 5.5 days is like nothing you've experienced in your life because you're going to discover and basically learn how to trigger everything that controls every thought, every feeling, emotion in your life. And after about 4.5 days of doing this, where you now have complete mastery over your own life, then we bring in intimate relationship into it. Because what happens is you get somebody that really has problems and they put them with somebody else who loves them who also have problems, you got big problems. Once you got yourself wired, now you can figure out how to create a relationship at the level you want. So, here's what I want you to know. How many of you would like to go to the next level of this process? Say aye. Then you got to deal with the two issues that always show up, time and money. Here's what I'll do. I'll handle the money side from my guarantee. You can go to anything I teach, half of it, if in your judgment it isn't the best freaking thing you've ever done in your life, so you don't have to wonder, is his weekend the most he can do? This is nothing compared to where we're going. But you be the judge. You can get it all back. So you can go home if you decide to do this and tell somebody, I'm going to steal from him. I'm going to go half the program and take it all for free. You won't. It'll transform you. So that's number one. So you don't have to have any fear or wondering, is it worth it to you, or am I taking a financial risk? Zero financial risk. But you're going to have to come up with figuring out how to change and get through the time. School teachers, owners of businesses, whatever. But what I'll tell you is, it'll transform your life. This is the time you make an investment in yourself that'll go beyond anything you can imagine. Let me tell you about Date with Destiny. Here's what I'll tell you. Go. Go. Trust if you trust me at all, if I did not betray your trust here, tell you, go. So don't miss out on this piece. Date with Destiny, mark it down, make it happen. That's number one, okay?
Learn the simple strategies to discover your true gift. Transform a vision into a mission. Lose yourself in what you love. And create the freedom and fulfillment that you know you deserve.
This is life and enterprise management. And so as a result, we want to make sure we work on both. We want to create a system that allows you to succeed in both areas, life and your enterprise. By the way, which one would you say is more valuable? Which one? That's not how most people live the game. Most people make it the enterprise. And as they make it the enterprise, they wake up and they have a tremendous amount of economic success if they're successful. And what's ironic is what makes you successful may not make you fulfilled. And so there's a big pull in our culture to go for what's most successful, what will reward you culturally with respect or acknowledgement or stars on your chart or economic rewards, thinking that will give us freedom. I want to really make sure that comes out of this is an evaluation of what your real gifts are that are going to fulfill you. Because many of you are living a script around your life that involves having an enterprise when really that may not be your true nature. Sometimes those problems have to do with the fact that you don't understand the stage of development you're in. The most important element is for you to be able to do this, to be able to establish, most importantly, where you really are in your life today. Where are you? And where do you really want to go? What's going to create this extraordinary life? And to look at it brand new. Because some of you right now, if you continue the direction you're going, are going to be successful and unfulfilled, unhappy, and stressed. Because once we get, into a dream, then that dream starts to take on a life of its own. It gives us juice, it gives us energy. But how many of you have got the dream, achieved your goal, and then thought, is this all there is? You've got to separate the vehicle from the outcome. What is it that's going to truly fulfill you? What is it that's going to give you that extraordinary life? What's going to make things magnificent on your terms, not somebody else's terms? Sometimes you've got to reevaluate what's going to really make you fulfilled. What is your gift? Are you an artist? Are you the talent that can produce something no one else produces as a skill or a product or a service or some impact? Are you incredibly good at management? You really know how to manage or lead people? Are you an extraordinary entrepreneur that can take that gigantic gut load of risk and can create the vision and attract the talent that you need and the managers and leaders? You may have all three abilities, but which one really fulfills you the most is going to be the critical question. See, again, the secret's going to be this. What is an extraordinary life on your terms today? Getting clear about that. At this stage of life, where you are, where you want to go. At some level, you have a blueprint, a mindset, a belief system, a philosophy, a set of values that says, if I master this thing called my life or my enterprise, then I'll have this great feeling. But what's really interesting about life, I believe that extraordinary life, however you define it, has two master skills to it. The first skill is the science of achievement. Most of you in this room have achieved enormously at various levels of business or as an individual artist or talent or as an entrepreneur or as a manager or leader, as an investor. I mean, everybody in this room, most of you in this room, have really hit the jackpot by most of the world's standards, even though most of you think it's still not enough. But the science of achievement is a skill. It is a science. There are laws. But the reason I love business is I see business as the ability to take the invisible and make it visible. I think that is what spirituality and creation is. It's about how can I find the gift I have to give the world. But the second skill of life is less focused on, and if you're going to have not only management, but create and grow an extraordinary life, you've got to master the second. And that second master skill is the art of fulfillment. The art of fulfillment. And the art of fulfillment, I call it an art because art is like what one person thinks is beautiful, somebody else may think is ugly. But what you have to be able to do is find out what is it for you that's going to fulfill you. And I'll tell you there's two primary elements to that. You've got to figure out what is your gift that's going to give you a sense of meaning, because you can't be fulfilled without a sense of contribution. You can feel happy. Happiness for most people is temporary. So success without fulfillment, that's called failure. If you know somebody who's got everything they thought they wanted and they're not fulfilled, they got a real problem. So what's going to make you fulfilled? Finding your gift, contribution. Life's not about me, it's about we. If we feel like we're contributing to someone else, then we don't just get something, we become something. And what you get never makes you happy long term. Who you become makes you very happy or very sad. So part of that art of fulfillment is, what's my contribution? The second part of it is appreciation. Some of you are contributing, but you're not taking the time to really appreciate. You're not noticing. Every moment of your life, you got to decide, what are you going to focus on, and what does it mean, and what are you going to do? Is it the end of the beginning? Are you being punished or rewarded? Meaning is where all life is shaped, and you have the power to change the meaning. How fast? But you better ask a better question or come up with a better answer.